Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the JKLM Media Podcast, a podcast where we, as friends, get together and watch one-off series that we've recently come across or really have liked and want to discuss with each other because we think each other will find something special and unique about them. And with me to do that, I have the J in JKLM Media, and that is Jesse.
Hello, Lou.
All right, how are you doing?
Good.
And equally as important is the K, Karen. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Yeah, I was eating fortune cookies. Sorry.
Yeah. And what is the fortune of the cookie?
Oh boy. I'm too old to read this. You are a deep thinker with a knack for problem solving.
Oh, very good.
Am I though? I don't know.
I
guess so.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the print is really small on these.
Yeah. Yes. You need bifocals.
I do need bifocals. You're right.
All right. So we're getting back to the English. We've now seen episodes 3 and 4. And I'm very interested to hear reactions from Jesse and Karen, because what I haven't really mentioned since we started this is that this show does not follow normal conventions of this type of what you would call a romantic story. So it'd be interesting to hear what both of you think. And there's a lot of backstory in these 2 episodes, and it turns things on its head. So we're going to be talking about episode 3, which is Vultures on the Line, and then episode 4, The Wounded Wolf. So just as an overall impressions of these 2 episodes, I'm going to ask the person I'm most interested to hear the reactions from. There's no slight to you, Jesse, but Karen, because she's such a big romance novel reader. I'm wondering how these 2 episodes played out for you.
Yeah. One of the things, okay, I sound confused, but I'm not. I read very complicated romance novels. They're not your basic, bodice rippers or harlequins anymore. They are full of angst and, real world things that intrude. They're real, what I would call mainstream fiction romance novels, because, people discount romance as a genre, that it's light and fluffy and all that. But I read stuff that is dark with angst and, that kind of thing. So these aren't out of the realm of what I read. They're quite dark. They are not what I would call a standard, like, straight romance novel content. Definitely not. And it is I would say these 2 carry the title of romance in that broad sense of, the scenery is romantic, quote unquote. And there's a lot of where there is romance about America in this, that there are several people in the story that come to America dreaming of this better life, better opportunities, the romance of that. And I'm going to put it in air quotes because, again, that's not like love romance, but there's a lot of that. And then I overheard Jesse, as I'm getting back to the mic, saying that you can't trust anyone. Everyone can turn into a bad guy in this. And so there's that whole kind of specter hovering over everyone. And I find that characters that I feel like they have a past that interweaves and also future that might interweave. I find those very interesting. And also, I was incredibly taken aback by episode 4, in that it was a flashback episode. It was all in the past. And it really does kind of show us some stuff that I was assuming something else was happening. And yeah, so I appreciated that. I liked seeing how kind of the character of some of the people, that they had either better character than I assumed or worse. And that was super interesting. These were incredibly good episodes. The writing is beyond other Westerns. I wouldn't put this in a spaghetti Western category at all. While we do have that kill or be killed mentality in this show, there's also a lot of very deep themes, emotional themes, and just overall great acting. And you end up super hating the bad guys, which to me, again, it makes a good character because I feel something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I thought about 3 and 4.
Okay. Yeah. Just before I bring you in, Jesse, I just wanted to remark on something I said in the previous episodes where I sort of slipped out the father of the child, and then you kind of went, hey, and then I thought, well, it's I probably made you assume something that you didn't think it was
right
real, so I apologize for that.
No, that's okay.
But I didn't want to say anything more.
As soon as I saw the ending, as soon as I saw the ending of the 4th episode, I was like, okay, I see why he said that. I mean, I really did. Okay. I was reminded, and okay, I get it now. Okay. So yeah.
All right, Jesse, how afraid are you?
I did not. I thought who was the father was someone different than what we find out. I also, and I know I'm kind of jumping ahead, how she had a child is totally different than what we thought. This is a series that I will have to find time. I will watch the first 4 again before I go to the next 2. This is definitely, and it's a cliche, but this is a novel for television. And I think this serves itself better binging it versus 1 episode at a time, or in our case, we're doing 2 episodes at a time. I did say to this, I mentioned this last time we recorded this. I don't trust anyone in this world. It makes me nervous. I was glad to see, while sad at the same time, that the couple I suspected something turned out to be villains, and this is a very violent world. They are doing a good job of showing that it's violent. They are doing a good job of showing. I mentioned Deadwood before, right? Like Deadwood does a great job of capturing how dirty the American West was. As much as I love John Ford movies, and I recommend seeing The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance and Stagecoach and on, The Searchers, and which wasn't John Ford, but other films, it looks clean, because they were made in the 50s and 60s. This is a violent world. This is a messy world. And just because you're trying to do the right thing doesn't mean you're rewarded. Before I watched Wicked, I had a friend who said no good deed goes unpunished, and then that's a theme in Wicked, right? But I do. This is a good thing. No good deed goes unpunished here. And as much as she is trying to do the right thing with the children and everything, it is a constant struggle to stay alive and to try to finish this journey. I just was fascinated by the cinematography, the acting, and the story. I really think this is something a lot deeper than you would suspect it was going to be.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I agree with Karen's comments about it not being a spaghetti western in story, though I do think in look and iconography, it's definitely is paying homage to those
I think
spaghetti
so
westerns.
too.
Oh yeah, there's no disputing it's paying homage to those,
Yeah.
Especially in that opening scene. I mean, the intro.
Yeah, the titles.
I love watching that, and I usually would skip through an intro, but I love that how it looks like paper cut out and the song and everything. I think that is a huge nod to spaghetti western. But I think once you get to the meat of the story, it's so much better than those.
Yeah. So let's turn to episode 3 then. Vultures on the Line. And when I watched this the first time, I had to admit I was a little confused because we were getting a lot of characters that I didn't recognize, and it was very difficult to parse out what they were doing here. Now, fortunately, by the end of episode 4, it all comes together quite clearly. But based on the previous 2 episodes, I was caught a little off guard that the direction the series was taking, and I was going to myself, well, they must be setting something big up here, because why would we care about all these ranchers and farmers and so forth? And for a major portion of this episode, the principal characters don't even appear, so it was a bit off-putting, but I did enjoy the various threads that we had here. Probably the most interesting character to me was Thomas Trafford, who played who was the character that we assumed going in was the father of her child, because they had been almost married at one point. So, but he comes across as an interesting character that he seems to be. You would think he would be in the command of everything because of his position and so forth in England, but I think it's pretty apparent that he's out of his element in this American Wild West, even though his money is maybe helping him cushion himself from the true impact of everything that's happening to him. So I'd like to, Jesse, I'd like to start with that character and what you thought of him.
Yeah, he seems to be a little naive. He is self-aware that I've won and lost a lot of fortunes. So this guy is here to make sure I don't lose another fortune. But he tends to be, I think I mentioned this before, that I know I did in an earlier podcast. I can't remember if it's this one or one of the other ones, but Penn Jillette made a point of he never wants to go anywhere where his money doesn't make a difference, right? So this guy thinks his money makes a difference, but it doesn't. The people around him are kind of sort of respect him, but at the same time don't. And so it's a very interesting dynamics about this, and there is this undercurrent of taking what you want and taking advantage of people less than yourselves. That's very unsettling. I have not found besides our 2 leads, anyone, maybe the sheriff is someone to root for. Everyone else is in various shades of evil, and I hate bad, let's say. Obviously, like the Mennonites we met, they seem to be really nice and everything, but as far as the main cast, these are people that are not, you would sleep with one eye open, right? To use that cliche. It makes for an interesting story, and I do, this feels like a really good Louis L'Amour or Zane Grey novel, right? That is fully formed with great characters.
Right. Karen.
Agreed. No one is free from their bad side in these, even Eli. I would say Cornelia is so far the most good out of all these characters. And again, this might come to bite me in the butt later, but I think that she and Trafford are mirrors of each other in that they assumed that having money kept them safe, both of them, and their place in society, because there was such a huge caste system in the UK back then. And I hate to say UK, in London, because they thought that that would carry over, that people would be the same, essentially because a lot of the people that settled in the Americas were from European countries. And I think they thought that that would just be a given, that they would get there, their money and their standing in society would bolster them. And they were quickly cured of that illusion. Especially, I think, Trafford, who I think that in the back of his mind, he thought, well, this guy will kowtow to me at some point. So, yeah. Again, that's in the next episode. But as Jesse and I theorize, at least the dude of the Clarks was going to be a bad guy. And it turns out they're both bad guys. But again, it's shades of gray. You know why they do it.
Yeah.
Their land was stolen from them, so they feel like stealing back is just desserts. They feel like they're right doing what they're doing. And again, I mean, we just mentioned this in the Babylon 5 podcast or somewhere else, I don't remember where, that the bad guy thinks they're the good guy in their story. And the only reason we think they're the bad guys is because we're looking at them from a different perspective. And I will say that it's so far back that I shouldn't even really mention it, but I do have some Native American heritage in my family. And I was brought up remembering that our land, and I should not say our land, those people in my family, their land was taken from them and they felt cheated by America. And it was a very strong feeling, even back to I think it was the 1930s, where it started in my family, Cherokee from Oklahoma. And their land was literally taken right from under them. They had that big land rush where people ran to get their land. And in some cases, there were still people living on that land that were evicted as the person, got there and put their flag in the ground. And so it's heartbreaking to me to see characters like the Clarks, because they were wronged in a horrible, horrible way. And it is them personally that were wronged. And so, I mean, they look like bad guys to us in the story, but I completely understand their methodology behind it. These were Mennonites. These were people that had come to take their land. So stealing from their cart, who cares? Taking their cart and selling it to someone else, good. They were here to take my land. I'm going to get a little bit of mine back. And Cornelia, as far as that goes, they didn't have any sympathy for her. They were going to take her money and run. And, the fact that she left just kind of, oh, well, she left. Hopefully she'll come back so that we can take more from her. And I was kind of straddling that fence of completely understanding where they came from, but also hating how they did it. But again, I mean, it's hard to think of it happening any other way. They didn't have any other way to get recompense from them. They were given land that could not be farmed. They couldn't have a ranch with the animals. I mean, it was just scrubland. The topsoil was bad, and there was clay underneath it, and it was worthless. And that's the only reason they were given this land. And so, how else are we going to survive? But I found this episode was, it felt realistic to me. And also the whole thing about Flynn and Myers, I had some very deep confusion about that part, although we do learn that she has cattle pox, horse pox, whatever. So I thought it was because of that they knew they were going to die and they didn't want to suffer. I think it was much more complicated than that. They had a branding. So they were being, I guess, hunted by these people that they cheated, as we learn in the next episode. I think there was a lot of different things happening here. And after the fourth episode, I thought to myself, well, good then. Good that they ended up like that. Right. I think the only person that I felt for was Martha, Myers' wife, Billy Myers' wife, because her cattle was stolen from her, and it was by Trafford, a character that, and again in the fourth episode, we have such sympathy for. But he was only doing what the law told him to do. They were not branded, and by law he could take them. And so again, this is so shades of gray. You can see both sides. You can see why the villains did what they did, at least in this episode. So yeah, it was something that really makes you think, something that makes you question your own thoughts. And like Jesse said earlier, it's hard to, in this kind of environment, it's hard to stick with your morality.
Yep.
And I think that was the big lesson when it came to Cornelia giving these children back to the Mennonites, when she's trying to convince them, this land isn't yours. And they said, no, you're right. It's not ours. It's God's. That's why we are taking it. And they had no sympathy for the people that were ousted. And she just had to give up. And when she learned that Eli might be in trouble, that was, okay, there's nothing I can do. I just have to go and help Eli. And it was heartbreaking, a lot of this episode. And also a little on the gory side, especially when it comes to Billy Myers being hung. That was the most gory scene. So
yeah. Well,
sorry for going on and on.
Yeah, no, and I do agree with you also, right? This is a little bit of confusion. That's why I think I want to watch all of them again to kind of get the story. This is a complicated story. This is and even when you throw in the fourth episode, which is a flashback, this weaving together, I know I need to watch the first four again to make sure that when I go into these last two, I'm at the right place where I need to go story-wise so I can see the ending.
Yeah, understood. It's for sure. Because I know on my second viewing, I was picking up a lot more than I did the first time. And this episode in particular is the most confusing because of all these new characters that we haven't dealt with previously.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And Karen, you covered a lot of territory there, and I really agree with pretty well everything you said. I really like how you picked on the perspectives of all the different groups of characters. Like you've got like the English characters, Emily Blunt and Tom Hughes characters. You've got the disenfranchised Indians like the Eli Whip and the Clarks, Gary Farmer and Matilda Zayabrowski. Gary Farmer is a character actor that I've seen in quite a few things, and he's particularly good in here. And then you mentioned the Mennonites, and at first I'm puzzled. Why are they including this story thread in this series? But as you've pointed out, they represent like there's these different perspectives that these characters have. Like there's the social, the upper class characters that just have this blind spot to, you know, anybody that's below them, their station in life. And we see in episode 4 that comes back to haunt Trafford in a big way, as well as Cornelia Locke as well. And then you have the disenfranchised Indians, and then you have the Mennonites, who out of all of the groups are probably the least offensive, but they have this religious blind spot that they belong here because God brought them there. You know, so there's all these different threads in this particular episode that make for a very interesting viewpoints. And the beauty of the landscape, and again, like where they filmed this in Spain, it's just gorgeous. Like I just can't get over it. But and then you marry that contrast it with the violence. Like when she's talking to that scientist character, Lady Cornelia, and all of a sudden the guy just gets shot. Like it's just like, wow. And then the guy drags him into the
that was awesome.
Yeah,
that was awesome. Like a pulley.
Yeah,
just pulling him into the wagon.
Yeah. So, and that Indian, like, it's, you know, like this is just what he does, because I guess the scientists must have went into maybe sacred land burial grounds or something like that. They never really, I don't think they ever clearly delineate what that was, but
I'll tell you my perspective real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I think that man was a shaman, a Native American shaman.
Right.
And I think maybe this dude, in trying to further his scientific studies, stole a bunch of stuff from the shaman, medicine and all that kind of stuff. That's what I got from it.
Okay.
So.
Interesting. And probably true, but I just, because that guy was in such a short scene, I thought higher of his character than that, but I don't know. Like, he seemed like a scientist to me. I don't know if he would, but he might just, like you said, because of his perspective of science, he wouldn't care about the shaman Indian, you know, rituals and folklore and beliefs, and that he would just trot over that ignorantly, I guess you could say. So what else have we got in this episode? We've got, as you mentioned, Martha Myers, who's the wife of what we found out is one of the characters that's involved in a violent event in the 4th episode. And then we have Flynn, who is asking the sheriff strange questions about markings on their bodies and so forth. So can't really talk about that without getting into the 4th episode. So unless there's anything else you guys wanted to mention about this episode.
And it almost feels like 2 different storylines, right? Like
yeah.
You're wondering, how are these going to connect? What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, because this is, you know, take a drink mandatory for me to mention, right? Springsteen in his song Devils and Dust says, I've got God on my side. I'm just trying to survive. And what if you do to survive kills the things you love, right? And there is so often we find all religions, they justify their actions by saying that they're on the side of quote unquote God, that they are doing this thing. And so when you're kids, and this is slightly, you know, out of date, but playing cowboys and Indians, right? The cowboys are the good guys. The quote unquote Indians are the bad guys. And then as you grow up, you realize that Native Americans, you know, it is a totally, that from their perspective, we're the bad guys. So I think this is very adult entertainment, very adult storytelling. And I just was checking on IMDb. I've not done anything else this guy has done. I've not checked out anything else that Hugo Blick had done, but I'm now interested in checking out a few other things, because this is very, very complex and very interesting.
Right.
And I want to just say real quick, that scene where Cornelia confronts Clark, when she's like in the dark with the gun.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That was just a brilliant scene. I loved it.
Yeah. Right. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was so focused on all the other characters, I forgot to come back to our main 2 characters. So we're seeing the evolution of Cornelia quite a bit in this 3rd episode. She's if especially compared to the first episode where she's pretty helpless. Now she's able to, stand on her own 2 feet and look after herself. And when she's properly motivated, she kind of turns into a Sarah Connor character by the end of this episode. So that's pretty good to see. And for Eli, it was interesting that he got that compass for her, but he has to work it off. So the fact that he didn't want to go with her, but yet he still cares enough about her that he's willing to sort of become like an indentured slave for God knows how long the Clarks would have kept him there. Had they not made this arrangement with this other group to turn him over, that it was quite Emily Blunt is just out of the two, she had the more dramatic role in this episode. I just thought that she just does a really great job, though.
Amazing.
Any further thoughts on that, Jesse?
Wait, I'm sorry, we didn't mention Kills on Water, that they sold Eli to Kills on Water, who is he wants to find out about the Chalk River massacre. And of course, that's where the next episode is going. But I think that they were just biding their time with him, waiting until they could sell him off to whoever. And so I'm sorry. Go ahead,
that's
Jesse.
okay. Any thoughts on Emily Blunt?
Yeah, she's just amazing. Very different role for her. Though, as I talked about, I loved her in that Edge of Tomorrow, playing the action heroine. Very different than The Devil Loves Prada. So I think she's just a really brilliant actress, and this gritty role really serves her well. I think, and we're going to get to the 4th episode, but it goes back to, you're not even safe in the United Kingdom. You're not even safe in civilization if you are a female in this time period, which was very disturbing for me.
If you're a female, period.
Yeah, good point. Yes, very good.
Even
point.
in this time period, it's probably
very well said. Yes,
and another thing I want to point out, because you mentioned the director-writer of this, Hugo Blick, the dialogue, especially between John Clark and Eli Whip, it was like it was very short, sharp, and detailed, and it was almost like he had written the dialogue for one character and just sort of split it between the two of them, because they were totally on the same wavelength. Eli Whip totally understood where Clark was coming from, and Clark knew where Whip was coming from. So the dialogue was really tight, and that's any scenes they had together. It was almost like they just split the dialogue in half and given half of it to each of the characters. But I just love their dialogue in that and in those scenes. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. All righty, so let's move on to arguably the most impactful episode of the series, which is The Wounded Wolf. And finally, the connections of all these characters that we were introduced to in the 3rd episode are brought together, and it all has to do with this massacre at Chalk Lake, or Chalk River. Chalk Lake is a lake I went to when I was a kid. So
okay, that works. There's no massacre there, I hope.
No, not that I'm aware of. Good. And we get our true villain in the series. At I would say at this point, I don't think that's in any way to stretch a spoiler, because this guy is pretty evil. And Ray Spall, plays David Melmont, who is a lower class citizen from Britain, and he is just delicious watching him. He is evil and slimy and sneaky, and the things that he does when he's in back home, and what he does, of course, at Chalk River, are just I just think he just really propels the series into the next level. And Jesse, I'm curious how you thought about this character. Did you have any idea that he was going to turn out to be as evil as he was?
No, I didn't. I mean, I didn't trust him, and I thought he was a little too arrogant, a little too snarky. But I had, and once again, I'm fearful, right? You know, we get the scene where our heroine, Karen, right? Cornelia, right? I'm gonna get, yeah.
Yep.
You know, she calls him. No, it turns out you were doing all this. This is not true. And he thought, well, okay, so what? You know, what are you going to do about it? And then I think they do it masterfully. We're cutting across seeing him leave. And then you get the scene at the end, and it's very much spelled out, yet not blatantly, that he just took what he wanted from her. Literally.
Which was a lot.
Yeah. Yes. And it just is, he has this almost mustache twirling evilness about him.
Literally.
Yeah. Yep. And it is,
but it doesn't feel corny.
No, it doesn't feel, it feels really, really
evil,
powerful. And like I said, this is not comfort food. This is not watching a TV series. Oh, this made me feel good. This isn't Ted Lasso or Ghost or something, where it, like, I am not sure if, quote unquote, our heroine or hero are going to come out on top. I am worried about them, or even, this is very much could be one of those stories where even if you win, you end up losing. And that kind of story. It's very complex.
Yep.
Yeah. Cornelia's already lost.
Yeah.
There's no coming back from something like that. And now you understand why she turns into the person she turns into once she's confronted with America and what's going on. I will say there is a mirror between Melmont and what's happening in America, in that they all feel repressed by someone else. Where the Native Americans, as in the Clarks, they're trying to get their back. They're trying to, it doesn't matter if they do something to someone else, if they've already robbed them of something. And I think Melmont feels the same way. He has been pushed down to this lower class. He has I guess it's a Cockney accent. So you can tell he's come from a lower place in society. And so he feels like this is him getting his own. He feels smarter than all of them. However, there's a vast difference between how the Native Americans go about what they do, which is just robbing and, that kind of thing. And I'm saying just robbing. But I mean, it is way less than what Melmont does. He decides that in going with these people that he can fall into his true nature. And that is subjecting other people to the treatment that he's had. Massacring the Native Americans. I feel like that was his light bulb moment where he realized I can do whatever I want in America.
Yep.
And
land of the free.
Yeah, home of the brave. And that scene is, to me, spelled out because of things that have happened in my life. He rapes her. I mean, there is no questioning that. When I mean, it at the end of the episode, it for sure. But in that scene where they show her on the floor and she's adjusting her skirts, I mean, that is
her legs up.
Yeah, that is, and it's so triggering to me because of my past. I cried because of things that have happened in my life. And, I mentioned earlier, it's not safe for women anywhere. I can't walk down the street at twilight without worrying that someone's going to attack me.
Mhm.
I mean, it's harrowing. I don't think people understand, men, maybe you guys do, but you know what I'm saying.
No.
Overall, I don't think men understand how we feel daily. I have been preyed upon in a workplace. Um, I've had really horrific things happen in my life. And, even up to the point where I've had a boss tell me I can't wear pants to work. Um, girls got to wear skirts so that we can look at their legs. And it wasn't spelled out that way, but that's how it is. So this, and I want to say this for anyone, it's triggering, this episode.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So that was a shock to me. And now we know that Melmont is actually the father of her child. And and I think people might think, well, how could she care for that child? But when you're a mother, and I'm not a mother, but when you're a mother, you care for your child no matter what. You love that child. That child is innocent of whatever happened to bring them about. And Melmont impregnates her, and you wonder, I think some people might wonder, well, why is she so intent on avenging? But it's there's no substitute for a mother's love. And
I would say, Karen, stick a pin in that. It's going to come forward in ways that you're not prepared for.
Oh boy.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
Well, as far as this episode goes, I feel like she has a right for vengeance.
You've got your finger on the pulse of the story.
Okay. And Trafford isn't the father of her child, which, why is she seeking vengeance? Is she going after Trafford? That was definitely a huge assumption I made, and it's wrong. And in episode 4, I am thinking that Trafford is not a villain. He might do some bad things, but he seems like a fairly decent guy. He has a conscience about them stealing the cattle from her. He says, were they already out of the pen? And the guy goes, whatever. He is worried about things. While he's angry about what the settlers are doing, he feels like, it's his manifest destiny, to use a term that's used a lot. And once you know that the settlers are these, for the most part, they're villains. Two of them, Billy Myers and Flynn, they're bad guys. So, he has a right to be upset about them infringing on his ranch. So, I mean, this really did episode 4 was a huge turning point for me in making me realize that there was much more under the surface. And how much could I hate Melmont? I mean, he is one of the worst people, but there are people like that in society. And I mean, even today, there are people like him that feel like they deserve, and they're just entitled to what they take. And that really, it hurt. This episode is how I put it, I guess. So yeah, I thought for a minute that Melmont, in the beginning where he saves Trafford from spending extra money, you think, oh, well, that guy's pretty savvy. It's good that he has him on his payroll. And then all of a sudden, he turns into like this horrible, I mean, like I said, literally mustache twirling. He got that mustache that you have to turn up. I mean, I think they're telegraphing that very well with that, the look of him.
And that was a great scene, right? Where he's like, well, now then we're changing a price. No, a deal's a deal. And they work that. You talk about, I'm always stuck by this reminds me a little bit on Harry Potter, Dolores Umbridge, right? Who was evil. And J.K. Rowling's talked about that. Unfortunately, she wasn't punished. Bad people get away with things all the time. And I realize that this is a lot more serious than the Harry Potter world, but it's the idea that he is getting a free pass, that he can do whatever he wants. There's no consequences. And in fact, in ways, he may be rewarded for this bad behavior. And it's and
it's the society that he knows he's going to be in America. And so he doesn't have to pay for any of his crimes.
Yeah. And you talked a few minutes ago, Karen, and I'll get off my soapbox in a minute. I am amazed when other older white guys like myself do not understand the built-in advantages we have and can't recognize that this is nothing I've done. This is just the fact of it is. This isn't, and I'm not saying you should feel guilty about it. But I'm saying you should at least acknowledge that I can't understand and should not judge someone of a different race, age, or gender for what they're feeling and going through, because I can't understand. I can't, as much as I try to put myself in there, I can't. And I think that's part of the reason why you have triggers. I have triggers because I like feeling safe. I am lucky. I live in, I live in the United States. We have a nice home. I have a nice job. There are things I am safe about that I do not need to worry about. And to watch this show where everything is nothing is safe, everything is at risk, is kind of unsettling. And I think that goes again to why it's such good storytelling.
Agreed.
Right. I especially think it's interesting with the Melmont character and Trafford's foreman, Thin Kelly. He says, you got to keep an eye on that guy. Some people don't, when they're given this much freedom, it overpowers them, and something along those lines. I don't remember the exact quote, but we see that with after that deal where he, makes sure that the original deal is held to by blackmailing or threatening that guy. He tries to kill that wolf, but doesn't. And then when after the attack on Chalk River, he comes back and he's got no shirt on, he's covered in blood, and he's growling like a wolf, like he's just totally lost it. He's totally, fallen off the deep end in all aspects. And in some ways, he reminds me a lot of the Colonel Kurtz character from Apocalypse Now, from Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, where he's been subjugated for so long, and now he has this freedom to do whatever he wants with no apparent consequences. And that even carries over into his actions when he goes back to England and does, what he does with Lady Cornelia, steals her money basically and rapes her. And it's a very interesting character study. And this is a series that I believe that almost demands second watching, because there are so many themes going on here that you don't expect from this type of show and setting, because it's not normally the type of fare that you get. Like, I can only really think of Deadwood, maybe. There could be some others, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any other Westerns that are as complex as this one. Maybe The Unforgiven has that, but not to the same degree either. But yeah, there's a lot going on here. And I will say to you, both of you, after you watch the next two episodes, you should immediately go and watch the introduction of the series, where the Lady Cornelia is doing her dialogue, because I think a lot of what happens in there you don't clue in, because it's just sort of, we're setting up this mood, blah blah blah. But when you listen to what she's actually saying, it's really spelling out a lot of what you're seeing in these subsequent episodes. So yeah, it's just this episode really is powerful on so many levels. This is the big turning point, I think, in the series. And looking back on it now, we're in the 4th episode and we only got 2 left. And it's kind of like, oh my God, like how are they going to resolve all of this stuff in 2 episodes? Because you kind of feel like you're only at the halfway or the 3rd point of the series, right? But stuff is going to go down in the next 2 episodes. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your reactions to it, because as you've pointed out several times, Jesse, this is a series that takes you out of your comfort zone, and that will continue with the next 2 episodes. So yeah.
Okay, that's scary.
Yeah.
Can I also mention that, I mentioned earlier that the only good character, and I'm definitely putting that in air quotes, is Cornelia, and I left out Eli for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, we see also in the present, he doesn't want to get involved in anything.
Yep.
He straddles the line between.
He's lost so much.
Right. It's none of my business. I'm not getting involved in anything. He says that in episode 3 and also in episode 4. It's none of my business. I didn't get involved. I don't know anything. I know nothing. I got nothing. I don't care about things. And so he is not blameless. He could have done things in the past that would have made things better in the future, but he doesn't. And so that kind of gives him, he has a very sketchy morality. And he fought for the Americans. He fought against Native Americans. And to me, while we like him, I still like him as a character. Mm-hmm. There's definitely a reason to not like him. Mm-hmm. And I think the only reason we do like him is because he's changing as a person. He's seeing that, perhaps he was wrong with not interfering in things. And I think that's a big, big point to his mm-hmm. character. And also, I do like the fact that both in America and in England, Trafford and Cornelia are both shown as super naive.
Yep.
And I wouldn't like that in real life, but I like seeing that part of them. And I feel like Trafford still has a little bit of that. Whereas Cornelia, that's gone from Cornelia now. She's done with that. She's gonna stick up for herself and everything she believes in, and even going a little bit to the dark side, torturing Clark in a way, mentally torturing him. Mm-hmm. And I think Trafford is still in that kind of, well, I'm going to trust you to do the right thing. I'm in charge of you all, so you guys do whatever you want. Did the cattle come out of a good place? Well, I'm going to keep them anyway, even though I know they're not. Mm-hmm. So he's got a little bit of bad guy, but he's also naive. And to me, again, these characters are so multifaceted. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a single character that's one note. So that's why I'm really in love with the series so far. It's masterful storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I love is, I made a joke or made a comment in during our first episode about this, is like, they're kind of having fun with the romantic trope of a road journey, right? Like, mm-hmm. how often do we do this? And you wisely, Lou, didn't say anything, but this has nothing to do with that. I mean, they set that up. It looks like it's going to be this road trip. But they separate in the second episode, and we haven't gotten them back together again. Mm-hmm. Very complex story.
Yes, for sure. It's I can't wait to hear your reaction on the next 2 episodes. And maybe just to lighten things a little bit, Karen, yeah. I was expecting a little more chicka boom boom from you in terms of Mr. Trafford and his lovely hair. Oh my
God. I did do this when you mentioned him. Oh man, he is good eye candy. Definitely. Yeah. I love the floppy hair thing, the curly floppy hair. And separating him, the actor, from him, the character. He's very gray in these episodes, and I thought he was going to be the villain. So I was like, well, it's the actor and the character. But he seems really also, there's an endearing quality to his character as well. So that makes him even more attractive to me. But oh boy, is he adorable in it.
He's got the hair, that's for sure. But the man is very naive. He's got
definitely.
He's got some serious blind spots. And
even when he sees through those blind spots, he chooses not to.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I think that's everything. This is a very dialogue heavy show, so you really have to pay attention to what the characters are saying. And I took your hint, Karen, and I turned on the subtitles while I was watching it this time, because I caught a lot more, because they're talking, they're talking, but it's not boring talking. It's really sharp, snappy dialogue, and the characters are doing interesting things while they're talking. So like, I just think of the confrontation scene between Cornelia and the Clark's wife. What was her name? Matilda, I think it was, in the little cemetery, as she's digging that grave. Like, why is she digging that grave? Who's that for? Like, like
we think it might be for Eli. It's not. It's for the scientist dude. So
So it's just a really well done and really surprising series. It just watched it on a lark, and I was just blown away by how good it was. And
so are you advocating for the captioning? Are you advocating for that?
I think I am.
Yeah,
I agree.
It really does help.
Yeah, especially as you get older.
Well,
but I'm a purist. I like to watch things in their original aspect ratio, and the best presentation possible. So to me, subtitles are a distraction. But when you're trying to review a series that's so dialogue heavy, it's really almost mandatory that you have it on.
Yeah,
I started doing this during West Wing. Because I wanted to get every nuance of dialogue that Aaron Sorkin was writing.
Right.
And so what's funny is Chris, for the longest time, would be the same as you. Like, Chris was like, why are you guys having captions on? Now then he's reached the point where I'm almost done. He says, I'm mad if I'm watching something and they don't have closed caption options, because I want that extra just to see, because how often have you gone, what did they say? And you back it up, like, what did they say? So
yeah.
And sometimes you can catch that even still, if you're going, what did they say? The caption's still down there on the bottom that you can,
And it's not, I joked about it, age thing, but it's also because we're getting a lot more international content, and there's just dialects and languages and accents that make it difficult sometimes to parse what they're saying, so the subtitles really help quite a bit. And
in this case, it's flowery. And I think that's what makes it hard to hear everything, how different it is from how we speak now.
I agree.
All right, final thoughts, Jesse?
I'm just looking forward to this, seeing the end. Like I said, I definitely will watch 3 and 4 again. I'm going to try to find time to watch all 4, but I will definitely watch 3 and 4 again before I watch 5 and 6. I'm looking forward to next weekend, us talking. This will be good. This has been a really nice selection. We're hitting 10 out of 10 on these little side projects. I think everything we've kind of picked for the other one has been very enjoyable.
Okay, I do have to say, Devs, I think I picked up for the meat of the story and not the ending. So that was probably more like an 8.
No, but I'm just saying I would not have ever seen that, and I'm really glad I did. Yeah,
it's all been worthy to watch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm a much more the journey is more important than the end kind of person anyhow. So I'm fine with that. But
me too.
But a good ending is good.
Yes, agreed. Yes. Agreed. I think it could have done better in the ending, and I have a feeling that the English is going to end in a way that's going to blow me away.
Well, and I think going back to Station 11 had that journey that the ending really made the journey even better. Like you went, oh my goodness, now that we've seen this, they have just knocked up everything. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think like the ending from Midnight Mass was
just brilliant.
Yeah.
Crazy Town Banana Pants.
Yeah.
Is all I could say for that.
Absolutely.
All right. So 2 episodes to go. I'm very interested to hear what you guys think about that next weekend. It'll be quite an interesting conversation, I'm sure.
I'm not going to watch all of them. I'm going to go watch the last 2 right away because I want to know.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So if you want to hear more of our thoughts on other things, Jesse, where can they find you?
You can find me at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can, I am almost at 1,000 episodes of Set Listing Bruce.
Wow.
That is a lot of music talk.
That is.
So,
and he's definitely going to have Springsteen on for the 1,000th episode. 100%. It's already confirmed. He's going to be on. I'm lying, by the way. Please.
Yeah, from your mouth to God's ear. But if someone does have a connection, let me know. So please check that out. We're having a fun, and this has been such a blessing that we started doing this again. Mm-hmm. Going back to our Farscape days, this has just truly been just a little bit of joy every Sunday.
Yep, absolutely.
Agreed. And like you said, I look forward to hearing your thoughts next week. I look forward to anything that we talk about. Right. I really do. You guys are some of my best pals ever. So
yes.
Oh, thank you. Same
I
here.
love it.
And on that note, Karen, where can they find you?
At Elevaria in social media. And the front page of my blog has a bunch of links, and that's alliestuff.com.
Very good. And you can find me on YouTube at Loser Views, where you'll find these episodes along with our Babylon 5, Stephen King Writers podcasts. And on Twitter, I'm at Lou W. Sitzma or at S King Podcast. And so with that, I'm going to ride off in the sunset with my 2 friends, and we'll come back next weekend with the conclusion to the English. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.